All right. So it seems that we are now live. This is, I think, the very first time that we are broadcasting in this YouTube channel. I have a lot of live broadcasting in our Czech YouTube channel where I explain things in the Czech language. Uh, and I think today is the first time in English. So I would like to welcome Brian here with us, who is a social worker who has studied counseling, psychology, social work, three more or less synonymous terms, and who is meeting his clients and who is helping them to be healthy in their mind. Am I right?
That's the goal. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Thank you for coming and for joining me. So I'm wondering if I could maybe learn more from you, as I myself am am a student of psychology. Let's say I study mental health counseling, my master's degree, and at the same time, I follow the Buddhist teachings. I was a monk for 15 years, so I would like to integrate the religious, let's say, spiritual aspect of Buddhism into the counseling profession when I hopefully become a counselor. And so I'm really curious whether you integrate the Buddha's teachings or the way how you understand the Buddha's teachings into your counseling or social work sessions, and if you could tell me more about how do you do that, or whether you do, and how much, and whatever else is related.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a huge topic, and the Buddha's teachings have been a huge part of my life, and they're kind of ingrained in a lot of the things that I do. I hope the way that I live my life. Um, and I do feel very fortunate to have this profession because it is so synced up with my experience of the Dhamma and my experience of meditation and following the Buddhist teachings. But it's an interesting dichotomy because, well, really, as you ask that, I don't overtly insert things from the Buddhist teachings into my sessions. One, because I'm not a Buddhist teacher, not a meditation teacher. Um, and most of the clients that I work with are not, they're not Buddhist. A lot of them are either ex-Christian or maybe some might even be Christian. Um, I have some Buddhist clients, and we'll talk a little bit, but so not overtly. However, the principles, the Four Noble Truths, meditative awareness in general, and especially loving kindness. I mean, they're just like in the room, very much with my style and the way that I experience working with clients. Um, you know, some therapists are really good at setting out an outline. Here's what we're going to do, this and this, very very by the book, which is good in a lot of ways. um, and here's the homework, and here's the rating scales that we're using, and this is your diagnosis, and then because you have this diagnosis, here's the best treatment. I'm like, what's going on here in the present moment? What is happening right now? What do you feel? What do you notice in your body? A lot of body awareness, a lot of present time awareness using mindfulness. So I'll encourage clients to kind of build that awareness in the session. But as far as integrating the two more efficiently, or just being more curious about doing it more, I'm on that journey. I'm learning how to do that more, um, which is why I enjoy spending talking with you about this type of thing, because I feel like it's such a rich area, and it's an area that a lot of people have walked, before us. I mean, it's, we're not the first two people to think about that. But it's complex, and there's so much culturally that myself as a Western Buddhist, I don't understand the cultural context of a lot of Burmese tradition, Thai tradition, Vietnamese tradition. So there's just so much. There's so much to talk about and so much to explore. Those are some of my initial thoughts.
Mhm. Did you ever have a client, who is Buddhist or who would like to discuss their spiritual beliefs?
Um, Not really.
Hmm. So
Mm-mm.
so when you talk about awareness, do you ever get a kind of feedback that they feel, oh, this is so spiritual, or this is maybe Buddhist-like, or do they understand awareness as something like non-spiritual or beyond spirituality?
So I don't introduce it as spiritual on the front hand. And so, I will teach awareness as something that they can experience in the present moment. It's just right here, awareness. Sometimes I'll be like, can you hear the sound of my fingers right now snapping?
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, awareness. You hearing. Um, and so I don't introduce it as spiritual, and I haven't gotten feedback where people are saying, it feels a little too spiritual for me or something. Um, so I don't think so, no.
I see. See, so you are taking really just the bare mindfulness or the bare awareness aspect, rather than, let's say, teaching them how to sit in meditation posture or how to maybe observe body rather than mind, or the mind rather than body, or things like that.
I think so. A lot of the clients that I see have really complex PTSD.
Mhm.
So their experience of their body is different than someone that does not have PTSD. So I mean, some of the experiences that they've had, especially in early childhood, were so overwhelmingly painful, overwhelmingly um, scary, traumatic, that whenever, because I do this a lot, I catch myself wanting to get them to be in their body, to get them to feel the sensations in the body, from this like kind mindfulness perspective. But as soon as I encourage them to do that, sometimes it's like, no way. The body is holding so much emotional pain that even the meditative awareness is really overwhelming. And that's not all the clients that I see, but I do run into that sometimes where I kind of notice my own agenda as someone that loves meditation and loves the Dharma and believes in the power of mindfulness. I have to remember, like, for some clients, even just a split second of mindfulness is a huge win because they have lived their whole life avoiding the feelings inside. So even a moment of it is really, really, really powerful. But some clients, um, they might not have that experience of really overwhelming, painful emotion in the body, and with those clients that express some interest in learning about meditation, I teach them what I know, but I try not to overstep my boundaries as someone that's not a meditation teacher.
Hmm. I see. How did you get to Buddhism, and what happened on your, let's say, um, what happened on your path that was somewhat influenced um, by Buddhism, that you decided that you will study Buddhism, let's say, deeper, or practice Buddhism deeper rather than something else?
Yeah. So I grew up in Tennessee, in the United States. This is a very Christian culture. So I grew up going to church with my family, and I never liked going to church. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I felt uncomfortable there. A lot of the beliefs were really scary for me as a young kid. You know, being told if you do this wrong, you know, you're going to hell. God doesn't love you. A lot of fear-based teachings. But I don't think that is necessarily the intention of the people that are in those spaces. That's just the way that I received it as a little kid. Um, but super early on, I somehow got my hands on a comic book that was like Zen for beginners, and it was like a Zen, very silly, simple comic book. I don't even remember like how I got a hold of it, but I remember reading the Four Noble Truths and like reading about meditation, and I was like, yes. I was like, this is great. For some reason, it sang out to me. I was so excited to read it. It just felt really calming, and it felt like, yeah, I don't know, like you meet someone that you feel like you've met before, or like you've known each other for a long time. It just felt very nice. Um, and so I remember like they kind of gave me a little, you know, this is how you meditate. And so I remember on the school bus, I think I was probably maybe 10 or so, and I remember trying to meditate, like counting my breath. You know, I was like try to count my breath. I couldn't do it at all. I could count maybe one or two breaths and I was gone. But I was just so excited about the idea of meditation. Um, and from then, I always had an interest in Buddhism. You know, I was still in that Christian culture, and so I couldn't say that I was a Buddhist, or I couldn't even like buy Buddhist books or anything. Um, but anytime I had the opportunity to learn something about Buddhism, I was like, you know, really excited about it. Yeah.
So by then, I suppose internet was not still easily available for you, or how did you gradually get to the level where you found out about the monk Ashin Sarana, and you started to maybe contact him and so on and on?
Yeah. So, you know, whenever I got access to the internet, I was more able to read and get teachings and things like that. So I definitely read a lot of different books from a lot of different teachers and traditions. Um, and the local Buddhist meditation group here in Nashville was in the Insight tradition and Theravadan Buddhist. And so by that point, um, I think I was 19 years old, and I just had a lot of faith in the Dhamma and in the Buddhist teachings, and really I thought I wanted to be a monk, because I was just like, this is what I love, this is what I'm interested in, and I want to be a monk. So that's whenever I decided to go to Myanmar for a long retreat, and I thought I'll go to Myanmar. You know, I'll go on this 4-month retreat, and then I'll become a monk. Uh, and actually, there's one monk in Nashville, a Theravadan monk, who I talked to beforehand, and I remember I told him my plan, and he looked at me and he was like, "That's a horrible idea."
Like a Christian monk or a Buddhist monk?
Buddhist monk, yeah, he was a Theravadan monk.
In Nashville?
Mm-hmm.
Like American or Burmese or?
It was American. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he thought it was a horrible idea, my plan, um, which he knew, so I think a little bit more than I did, because I think I had a lot of faith and not a lot of wisdom about about my intentions and about what I was searching for. But anyway, that's what brought me to Myanmar, and that's where you and I met.
Mhm.
I don't know how. I mean, it was kind of a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, that could be some maybe 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
Hmm.
So you went to Myanmar, you were meditating. What led you to the decision that you would not become a monk?
Yeah, really, I just was so overwhelmed there. I think I was unprepared. I didn't speak the language, which, I don't know. I guess my 19-year-old brain just didn't think that that would be an issue. Um, and I don't know exactly all of the reasons, but it wasn't right. It just didn't sync up. Things didn't really line up. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just kind of crashed and burned. It was really, really difficult situation
Mm.
because not only really I was having a reckoning with my faith in the Dhamma. I thought, hey, like I have all this faith, and I thought, I go and dedicate my life to this, but it was like for some reason it didn't quite sync up.
Mhm.
Because I'd been on several silent meditation retreats before that point, you know, but the longest of which was about a week.
Mm.
And so, and I loved those experiences. I mean, it's some of the most at ease and fulfilling experiences of my life. Probably where I have felt the safest, where my heart can really open up. So I just thought, I just want more of that. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out.
So you have, so you say you knew a Buddhist monk in Nashville who's American. Does that mean you have a monastery there?
So it's a very, very small. Where he lived was essentially just a tiny little house, um, and he was the only monk there.
Hmm. He has been a monk for a long time?
I believe so. Hmm. Yeah.
I see. That's great to find out here and now. Didn't know that at all. That's interesting. So, are you still thinking that you may like to become a monk maybe in the future or things like that?
Well, I have a wife and kid, so I don't think so.
Yeah. And maybe when all your child or children become adult, do you think you would like to become a monk? What do you think? Just as an idea, no need to like commit to anything.
Yeah. The answer is always yes to that. I mean, there's always a part of me that thinks that that's the deepest, greatest honor. I mean, and there's a part of me that really longs for that.
Wow, that's great. Do I remember correctly that one of the challenges for you in Myanmar was that you are far from home? So would it maybe uh, help, let's say, if you become a monk in the USA in the future? We are talking just hypothetically. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably why the monastic I talked to in Nashville was like, "Don't do that. That's a horrible idea. Why are you going to Myanmar? Like,
Too
you
far.
too far. Yeah, you don't speak the language. You don't know the culture." So yes, um, I think it would be much easier. I mean, who knows how it would be, but if I were to, it would be in the United States, and um, you know,
Sounds great. So these days, how do you incorporate the Buddhist teachings in your day in your life?
yeah. So a lot of reading, a lot of meditation. I meditate every day. I try not to be too strict about it, because if I tell myself you need to meditate for 30 minutes or an hour every day, I won't do it. But if I know the intention within myself that I love meditation and that I do want to meditate, and I just open myself up to seeing when is the right time and how long to meditate, usually that time will show up and appear, and I'll meditate. So I do that a lot. Listen to a lot of podcasts. I have a meditation teacher named Nico Hayes, who I meet with regularly to talk about Dhamma, and yeah. And as far as work goes, I mean, they go so hand in hand, because part of my practice is just being very present, or trying to be present with my clients. And so I think what I hope makes me a good therapist is that I can be really present and not distracted. And whenever I am distracted, I can notice that and bring the awareness back to what's happening in the moment between myself and the client. Because a lot of time, what gets in the way between the therapeutic relationship can be my own thoughts, thinking, desires, ideas about how the session should be going or shouldn't be going. Meditation helps me be able to notice those thoughts and be like, no, it's back here. What's happening right here? What's it feel like? And then, I know we always talk about precepts, or follow the precepts, 5 precepts as well. Those are a huge, very important part of my life.
I see. Do you ever like practice, let's say, the deeper things, let's say, 8 precepts, or do you ever like go to monasteries and listen to Dhamma from monks and things like that?
So not from monks. I don't have access to that so much here. But meditation retreats, yes. There's one coming up here in a couple months that I'll be going on. But in the past couple of years, I haven't been on a long meditation retreat. I'm noticing something within me. I feel like I need to clarify. I would not want to be a monk as long as my wife is living. If
I
for
see.
whatever reason, I could see myself down the road, if my kids are grown up and for some reason I'm no longer married, it's a no-brainer. I would want to pursue monasticism, but I'm very committed to my marriage and very, very happy. So I just felt like I need to share that.
Sounds great. I'm thinking, as I'm studying psychotherapy and the different techniques and so on, I can see that, like in the program, we are basically forced to examine the client's past. So we need to find out whether the situation that the client is going through, whether it could be somewhat influenced by the client's childhood or upbringing, or something else that happened around the client, not necessarily child, but even adults. So I'm wondering, how do you and whether you try to reconcile, these two, let's say, different points of view, where if we take it from the Buddhist point of view, or if we apply, let's say, the mindfulness, so that's very strictly on the present moment, right now, the past is gone, the future didn't happen yet, so now be here in the present moment. And also the potential necessity to explore the client's past.
Yeah. So how I experience that is, sometimes clients will get into this explaining mode where they feel like that we're now, and myself included, that if I can just explain what happened to me, what happened in the past, then it will somehow go away. Then it won't have an effect on me anymore. I feel like the important distinction, because it is super important to know the history, um, but there needs to be this emotional processing that happens in the present moment about the past. So it's not understanding the past in such a way that all of a sudden all my problems are gone. It's how do you reprocess what happened to you, um, so that it no longer has such a charge. It's no longer so stuck in the system. Does that make sense? What?
Yeah, I think if I think what I understand is that you go back into the past with the client, but you also, as you use the word reprocess, you reprocess with the client on how does this going into the past affect the client right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there's this distinction between re-experiencing and witnessing trauma. What we're after is witnessing what happened rather than re-experiencing. Because I use this, the main therapeutic modality that I use is internal family systems. And I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything. I mean, I have a lot to learn and a long way to go. But there is this kind of mode of being that clients can just naturally embody whenever they feel safe and secure and calm and kind and curious, where they can almost witness what happened. Um, they can go to whatever memory that, you know, target memory that's causing the presenting issue, and kind of communicate with that part of themselves that experienced the trauma. They can go and see what happened and ask that part of themselves, what it wants us to know about how hard it was, what it wants us to know about the burden that they're carrying because of what happened. And something about the being there with that has this reprocessing potential, which is really, really cool.
If we look at the Buddhist scriptures, we will see there a very interesting discourse where the Buddha is approached by a Brahmin, kind of priest of those times, who asked the Buddha, how is it possible, Buddha, that sometimes we learn the scriptures? He's talking about the Vedas, the let's call them Hindu scriptures, as some people use that term. So Vedas, sometimes we learn these Vedas and then we just forget them. Sometimes we don't really learn them much, but we remember them well. How is that possible? And the Buddha explains that to remember well, 5 things need to be reduced or removed. And that is lust, hatred, laziness, restlessness, and doubt. I have heard recently a famous, I think, Zen monk or from somewhere, a Shaolin monk, I think, saying that the 5th one is doubt about yourself. So that's wrong. So the 5th is doubt about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. The 4th one, that's interesting, right? That a Shaolin monk would make a mistake. But it's possible that it's not a mistake in his tradition, in the Shaolin tradition. In Theravada scriptures, this is very, very clearly explained what these 5 are, because it's actually the first and foremost practice that we do when we practice any meditation in Buddhism, and that is reduce, suppress, remove, totally burn out, totally uproot these 5 things, and that is lust, hatred, laziness, restlessness, and doubt. So we have plenty of explanations on what these 5 are and how to remove them and how to deal with them. So for the doubt, indeed, it's doubt about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. The 4th one, the restlessness, that would be more about this doubt about yourself, that you worry that you cannot do it. And that's what takes you into the restlessness. So that's number 4. Anyway, so my point is that I think this is very good. This is very good idea to first start with the client get into the present moment, because by getting into the present moment, you are working already with the five hindrances. You are, although unintentionally, you happen to reduce or put aside these five hindrances, which allows the person to clear their mind, or let's say to open their mind. And as the mind is clearer, then they're able to remember better what happened in the past, regardless of what it is to remember. But more importantly, I'd say it's like undefiled, because the five hindrances are reduced, or let's say put aside. The client is able to, or the person is able to think of their past more in the sense of what really happened, rather
Mhm.
than what they think happened or what they wish that happened. And I think it would be interesting to conduct a research on these five hindrances and memory. So there is a lot of research on all kinds of things, and researchers love to say, "Oh, this is inspired by Buddhism," but they are not able to cite, which sutta it is. No, sorry, they don't know. Or say in Pali, what did the Buddha exactly say that supports that research? No, they have no clue. But I think it would be interesting to add, this research into Buddhism and Buddhism into research, to see how does the Buddha's teachings, and whether it does actually work in practice. But we can see definitely that when our mind is calmer, we can remember things clearer. And then when we get into the past, if we can maintain our presence, in the sense of that now what's going on is allowing the past to come up, to basically um,
Mhm.
regenerate into
Mhm.
the presence, because we cannot really get into the past, right? What we can is only allow that, what those, let's say, impressions, we can allow them to come up again. That's why sometimes what we remember did not really happen, and
Right.
sometimes what happened we don't really remember. So what we do is not really going back into the past, but we allow those conditions from the past to bring the effect now. That means the the arising of the memory. And then when we are in the present moment, we, through again suppressing or reducing or putting aside these five hindrances, we can better observe that memory without adding to it some additional, let's say, ideas or attitudes that did not really happen in the past. Do you, when you work with the past, with the clients, do you notice that their mind influences a little bit what happened in the past, and do you work with those attitudes?
Yes, certainly. So there's a lot here, and of course, I can never know what happened. I can only observe their experience of what they remember. But yes, so there's these negative core beliefs that come up whenever people experience, for example, trauma in the past. Um, or you might hear the phrase like cognitive dissonance, or cognitive distortions, actually, where something happened, I'm a bad person, or something happened, they don't love me, they must not love me, they must not like me. And that is kind of, so as you're talking and talking about the five hindrances, um, what's coming up for me is this curiosity around how the negative core beliefs play into all this, because as we're inviting the client to witness the trauma, to kind of, you know not re-experience, not re-traumatize, but to come into contact with some of the pain that they're holding, they do have the opportunity to meet that negative core belief that they have about themselves. So, you know, so and so was betrayed by their father, or they were assaulted by someone, and they were so little, and because of that, they thought, I'm a horrible person. I deserve this. That might be the thought that they have. And so anytime something reminds them of that experience, that negative core belief gets triggered. I'm a horrible person. And it creates this cycle of I deserve bad things, depression, anxiety, substance use, whatever it is. But the root is this negative core belief, I'm a horrible person, or I'm disgusting, or whatever it is. So yes, in the space where they are feeling safe and calm and present, they can interface with that kind of coding in their brain that's like, this happened, which means I'm a bad person. But in the therapeutic process, we want to go, this happened. Okay, this happened. Who are you right now? What are you? What kind of person are you really? You want to, I mean, I don't know how this necessarily interweaves with Buddhism, but the goal is to replace the negative cognition with something positive. I'm a good person, it might be, or I deserve good things. And so that's kind of what comes up as you're talking. Does any of that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You are reconnecting the person to their actions rather than to their perceptions. So the person. So um, I'm wondering whether you are leading the person to consider that they have done certain good things, or that they have the potential to do good things, and that they have the potential to choose what is right in their understanding, what is wrong, and that is very different from the perception of what people think about me. So my actions and other people's perceptions are oftentimes something very different. Like in the Buddha's time, for example, people would perceive themselves or others as the Shudras or the Vaishyas or Kshatriyas or Brahmins, or we could say Suddhas, Vesas, Khatriyas, or Brahmins. That means the four castes or subcastes. Like today, there are many, many, many subcastes to those four, which have developed very much throughout those 2,000 years. So then those are the perceptions of others. So other people perceive this one as Suddha, or they perceive him as a Brahmin, and so on. But that's what the others perceive. In reality, let's say the Brahmin is more evil and more um, undeveloped in their actions and in their thinking than, let's say, the Sutta, who is burning the corpses, or who is cleaning the street, and so on. So for the Buddha, what matters are the actions that we do on one hand, and on the other hand, the potential that we can do. So actions are some things that we have done, and we are now either already experiencing the consequences of the actions, or we will experience them. And on the other hand, it's also our potential. So we have the ability to do the good things, to follow the 5 precepts. So we do not kill, we don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't tell lies, don't drink alcohol or take drugs. And at the same time, we also can. So this is what we refrain from, but there is also actions we can do, namely generosity, meditation. So we can dedicate ourselves to giving, we can dedicate ourselves to meditation. And these are things that we can do, and we have that potential. So that's what we are in Buddhism. We are the result of our actions, and we are the potential to do actions in the future, and we have the full freedom to decide what kind of actions we want to do. Is that something you're sometimes considering or thinking about when you succeed in returning the client into the present moment and see who they are?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what trauma does is it narrows our vision of possibilities, what we think we are capable of, what we think we, if we don't believe that we deserve good things, our eyes are not going to be looking for those good things, either in ourselves or others. Um, and so, yes, absolutely. Um, giving, settling in and allowing clients to just explore like the possibility that they might be good, that they might have this capacity from a Buddhist perspective to awaken, like a capacity to awaken to the teachings or awaken to their own goodness, whatever it is. It's awesome. I mean, the job is super hard at times, but whenever clients, especially that, I'm over here like, oh my goodness, am I helping this person? Like, are they going to be able to like get better? And then one day something shifts, and it's not anything that I've done. It's they've been doing the work. They've been subtly, slowly changing the relationship to the way that they view themselves and not believing everything that their mind says. Maybe I'm not such a bad person after all. Or sure, maybe I feel like I'm a bad person, but what else is there? And I appreciate what you said about the action, because it's like, in therapy a lot we talk about emotions and feelings and things like that, but people can act despite their feelings, and everyone has that capacity. Yeah.
I'm wondering, as you said, that sometimes the clients come to the conclusion that they're not such a bad person, as you say. So this is one thing that I was always wondering about when I hear people, or even in books or elsewhere, suggesting that we like should not like label ourselves as like bad or good and so on. And I'm wondering whether, I don't know, I'm wondering whether this could have the dangerous effect, like, so if there is not like a bad person or a good person, well then whatever I do, I'm not a bad person. And in that case, if whatever I do, I'm not a bad person, then why wouldn't I just do whatever I want? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot comes up. Hmm. One, I trust that even when bad people do bad things, deep down, it's because they want to be free and they want to be happy and they want to feel safe. They're confused about what brings about that safety. From that perspective, that disarms the whole good bad dichotomy. Am I a good person? Am I a bad person dichotomy? And there's also a temporal component, I feel like, because it's like maybe there's a bad person, but for how long? They have the capacity to change. And that's the thing, is with trauma, these beliefs get solidified and there's this big I am this. It's like, that's hard to work with, and that's the goal of meditation or therapy or whatever, is to just start chipping away at this big I am, to open up. Oh, I'm actually I could be all kinds of things. I could, if they believe that they are good or bad or whatever, it narrows their vision. And I just trust that people are mostly good, and that they want to, they want to feel happy, but we get confused about what makes us happy. What do you think?
Well, the Buddha has very clearly distinguished kusala, akusala, wholesome, unwholesome. And I'm thinking maybe, on one hand, it's good to have this distinguishing of being bad or good. On the other hand, um, we could like improve the way how we do that. So the
Mm.
Buddha, rather than saying this is a bad action or good action, the Buddha distinguishes them as so-called skillful or wholesome and unskillful, unwholesome. I personally am not really sure how this wholesome English word may feel like to uh, people who have always been talking in English. But for me, the word skillful and unskillful is very clear because we know
Right.
what skill and we know when something is skillful. So I like that translation a little more. It's like closer in the meaning. And skillful means that if I do something skillfully, let's say I have a skill to cook. So I skillfully cook, and therefore it is tasty. Or I am not skillful, like unskillful. I will cook, and let's say I put there a lot of salt, or let's say I prepare tea. I uh, um, boil water for tea, and then I put there salt. That was not skillful.
Mm-hmm.
And the result is that I suffer.
Right.
It doesn't say that I'm bad. I'm just not skillful in making tea if I put there salt. So it doesn't turn, some kind of like judgment on me. It puts a kind of judgment on the action itself. And the judgment here is, I'd say, very constructive. It says, hey, there is something you need to do. There's some more training you need to go through because you don't have the skill yet. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is very helpful because it doesn't really judge me. It only provides me with a kind of like plan. It tells me, or a kind of more like a map. It tells me more where I'm on the map, how far I'm from the treasure that I want to find, and whether and what may I need. And we have so many of different things that could be skillful and that could be unskillful. So then, when we learn how to distinguish skillful and unskillful in our actions, we are then better able to concentrate on the things where we need to um, like gain the skill and appreciate the things where we already have the skill. So let's say somebody has the skill in following precepts, or let's say somebody has the skill in not telling a lie, but they don't have the skill in, let's say, not killing, or the other way. They have the skill in not killing, they love all living beings, but sometimes, they tell a lie or they drink alcohol here and there. So that is not skillful. So then they see, aha, okay, so my not killing, that's skillful. So that's something that I need to appreciate and continue. Whereas telling a lie, that's not really skillful. So I need to work on that so I get the skill of telling the truth. And so that's something that I like very much. And when I'm thinking about me, what I'm doing or who I am, I'm always thinking in that framework of skillful, unskillful. What are the things that I could do more skillfully? What are the things where I need a little more training? And it also as if it like reminds me that I'm not alone in there. There will be some people who have that skill and who can train me, who can encourage me, or who can give me the necessary knowledge or training or whatever else I may need to develop that skill so that I'm skillful and therefore I enjoy the fruits of what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I mean, it's such a helpful reframe, and it's heartening and kind of nice because there's this built-in feedback already in the action or in the relationship, whatever the person is doing. So if I, um, you know, if I tell a lie because of mindfulness, because of the practice that, you know, I've been blessed enough to be able to cultivate, I can feel in that moment if that happens, ooh, it doesn't feel good. It feels bad. Like, and so there's this built-in like, yeah, that didn't feel good. Didn't feel right. Didn't make me happy. I thought it was going to make me happy. It didn't make me happy. It's just super important, yeah, for that mindfulness to be there to notice, oh, I thought it was going to make me happy, but it didn't. It actually made me feel sad, and it hurt somebody else. Um, and yeah, taking away the morale, the like judgment of good or bad is a huge part of actually being able to be non-judgmentally aware, and it helps in the learning process. I mean, I don't have any research here right in front of me, but I imagine there's something there with our brain's capacity to, kind of tap into the neuroplasticity. Um, there needs to be this component of not judging. Um, anyway, I'm out of my league on that one. But yeah, like I mean, I think there's cool research on mindfulness and like smoking cigarettes, where people that were previously addicted to cigarettes, they really liked it. They started doing mindfulness training, and instead of just habitually smoking and just checking out and not being mindful, they were really, really, really mindful during the smoking process. And it's the craving beforehand, painful, and there's this like, oh, I want the cigarette, and that's painful. And then the actual smoking is a little bit unpleasant because it's hot and it tastes bad, and it doesn't feel like, it's just kind of, yeah, gross. There's a little bit of relief there, and then afterwards their mouth tastes bad and blah blah blah. And there's cool research showing that all it takes is this mindful awareness for our brains to actually see that the habit that we thought was helping us is not helping us. And it's just like, I don't really want to do that anymore. That's pretty cool.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Nice. I think our time is basically up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have learned a lot of things, and it's how to say, for me as a student, I'm actually not allowed to speak with my professors about something else than is the lesson itself. And because it's online, I basically, I almost never meet my teachers. So so I'm learning how to be a counselor, but I basically never speak with counselors. So
Yeah.
yeah, like the advantage is that it's like online, I can do it anywhere, and I can read the books peacefully and whatever else. But I do not really get to speak with the counselors, and I do not get to create a kind of like friendly relationship where I say, I have this, I have that, what do you think, and so on, because there is this all problem of so-called boundaries. And so I'm very excited and very happy that I got this opportunity to speak with you, as somebody who already has gone through this educational process and who is already putting it into practice. And moreover, somebody who's interested in Buddhism. I actually study counseling at a Christian school at Liberty, Virginia. So I do not really get too much talking about Buddhism in
Right.
counseling, but we do talk a lot about spirituality, and it's very much emphasized there. So I'm happy that I study there where I study and what I study, and how I study that. And at the same time, I'm happy that I can learn some more from you. So thank you very much for today, and I hope to see you some other time in the future, and maybe discuss deeper some of the things we tangentially mentioned today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to see you.
Nice. Thank you. I'm also thankful to everybody here who has been watching us. And let's see, this was our first live streaming. I'm not sure what we will do in the future and what is coming, but I'm definitely continuing teaching Dhamma, mostly to separate groups, separately in different languages. But I definitely have planned to continue contributing also into this YouTube channel. I've received some requests that I do some more for this channel, that there has not been much new. And so things are definitely underway, and I'm happy that we are all working on Dhamma, practicing, and enthusiastically learning. May you all be happy and healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.